here we're going to kind of move into another one of our segments, which is, can the Bears go to the Super Bowl? And B, can Nick Foles lead the Bears to the Super Bowl? So for me right now, I still have many questions with Nick Foles, but he definitely has a pedigree when it comes to the playoffs. And that's what gives me hope, is that Nick Foles, I mean, you saw him beat us. I think that 2018 Bears team, I think that if Parkey doesn't doink that kick, I think that they go to the Super Bowl. I think they beat the Rams. I think they end up beating the Saints. They beat the Rams. They handled the Rams early in the season. And I think they end up going to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to lie. I think that it's Bears-Patriots that year if Parkey doesn't doink that, right? I think it's one of the best defenses we've seen this decade, right? They were that good. But it is what it is, and Nick Foles, he played well enough to beat us. He played well enough to beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. He played well enough to almost beat the Saints that year, who ended up losing to the Rams. But where do you think that Nick Foles could actually bring this Bears team to a Super Bowl?
I think he can, but he definitely needs help. And it definitely needs to work out a lot to what we were saying, whereas this Bears defense is going to be able to keep a lot of these teams to a point where the Bears can win games by just winning 24 points. Because I think the question is for this team is, can the offense put up the points? I mean, that's ultimately what it seems to come down to every week is, are they able to get to that barrier where it seems like it is, like you said, 24 points, it seems like if they can get to that number, they're at least going to put themselves in a position to win the game. And like you said, it was 20 points on Thursday night. Maybe it's not going to be that easy every week, and that's kind of why we've seen the Bears have to claw back, especially so late in games. So a lot of that offensive chemistry and productivity and efficiency, I hope, can only improve over the course of the season. But it's definitely something that, we kind of need to see in order to really have a lot of hope. I think that the stars can align in the right way. The first step is the Bears got to make it in the playoffs. Well, it seems like it's going to be easy for them to accomplish that this year. So that's done.
They just need to go 500 for the rest of the season.
Right. So basically, as long as they can keep that up, then they're going to be at least in the mix of it. And then you think about who they're going to have to play. Like you said, most of the teams in the NFC now are pretty, they're more offensively minded than defensively minded. So the Bears are kind of a little bit against the grain there. But, can they win the matchups? Can they keep teams in close games where they can at least have a shot? That's basically going to be the key in those games, is keeping those offenses down and not getting in a shootout, because it doesn't really seem like the Bears are going to be offensively consistent enough to get in that. But, if Nick Foles can be opportunistic for this Bears team, if, the Bears defense puts them in good positions, maybe it's a good return from Cordell Patterson. They're going to need some kind of plays kind of from all over in the team in order to do it. But I think Nick Foles can do it as long as he's being put in kind of favorable situations. But that's just asking a lot from, the defense and special teams as well.
I truthfully believe that if the Chicago Bears can go out and find themselves a replacement at that guard position, I know some people pointed to maybe Kyle Long would want to come back. I don't really know how much that would benefit us. I truthfully, he looked pretty bad in his final year, but still probably better than Alex Barr, not going to lie. But maybe go out, make a trade, or find somebody, just bring in maybe a little bit more depth. And, hey, go out and get another running back. Go out and really explore all these options that became available. The Bears have had so many options come available to them at positions of need, right? If you go explore those, man, I really think that Nick Foles could potentially do that. But he is going to need the help, exactly what you're saying. He's had, I think they said 2.5 seconds or less on over 70% of his throws this season. That's not enough. That's not going to get you explosiveness. I mean, people wanted to make fun of Nick Foles when he had that bad miss to Darnell Mooney. He had pressure all over him. He had to let that ball fly way earlier than he should have. That's the thing with Nick Foles. He's not a mobile quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky. He's not going to be able to extend the play like that. He needs a quarterback, or he needs a offensive guard, some good guards to take care of him. And what did that Eagles team have when they won the Super Bowl? Well, they had a really, really good offensive line. So if you don't have that, that's the concern. And the fact that the Bears aren't exploring those options, that's also the concern. So where can he take us to the Super Bowl as an individual? Yeah, I do think that Nick Foles could, in fact, lead this Bears team to the Super Bowl, especially with the defense that we have right now. But are the Bears going to put him into a position where he can win a Super Bowl for the Chicago Bears? That's the question that I have. That is where I truthfully just have no idea. I think that we have to see this Bears team be a little bit more aggressive. We have to see Nagy kind of understand Nick Foles a little bit better as a player. And if that happens, which I think is something we need to look out for this week, which we'll get into in a little bit, but if that happens, this Bears team can go to the Super Bowl. Especially, we spent so much time talking about the NFC and how weak the NFC is right now and how well the Bears match up against them. I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think honestly, I don't see why not. I can definitely see the way that it happens, right? I can definitely see, how it has to be done and how it would work with this Bears team. And it just kind of seems like, eventually when things happen enough, you kind of have to accept that, it's just going counter to what your logic would be. And I think a lot of times it kind of feels like when we're watching these teams play against the Bears that they're just, kind of not playing well. But, you just have to figure there has to be something about the Bears team or something, that really just, phases other teams' offenses sometimes. It just seems...
It's like with the Patriots where everyone's like, oh, the Patriots got so lucky on like 5 of their Super Bowls. Like, yeah, but good teams get lucky, okay? Like well-coached teams get lucky. Well-coached teams make comebacks. It's not necessarily luck.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's kind of like, if it just kind of seems like you're repetitively lucky, you're doing something right, So the Bears are doing something right. They're 4-1. They're in a good position. They really just have to build upon where they're at. And it's out there. Optimally, and we talked about this extensively in this podcast, optimally, I think you'd hope the boost would come from bringing someone in, bringing in some extra padding at positions where they need it. But, it just seems like they really need to improve their offensive line play. They need to get better use out of their run game. But if they can honestly improve those two things, I think it's very plausible that they could, be a team that's in the mix for the Super Bowl. This team is a solid running game away from really controlling and eating clock and then, having a great defensive team, to clean up the mess. And if it's a defense that can give you a couple turnovers a game, 1 to 2, and put this offense in some good positions, it's going to be a team that's going to be able to, manage some games very well and probably keep, some of these higher paced offenses off the scoreboard. So there's definitely the methodology and the way of being able to go out there and accomplish it is out there. And, I think that, you kind of, I think we can meld this into next week's game, against the Panthers, because it gives them opportunity to improve on a lot of the mistakes that we've seen, right? It just kind of seems like we really hope they don't fall into kind of like the trap game after they go out and win against the Buccaneers, which is their best win so far. Or, we talked about the Bears not being great off of 10-game or 10-day, breaks or bye weeks even. So, you really hope it's a game where they used to really build that identity on offense that we've talked about so extensively and really start to develop some kind of balance, or, even if it's not like a 50-50 balance with running the football, what balance does the offense feel comfortable with? Is it a 60-40 ratio that just needs to be held? The Bears team just needs to find something that really works, that works for them in the duration of the game. And, what better opportunity to do it against, a team that's really been struggling so far.
Exactly. And the big thing is we talked about it extensively on the last podcast, that this Tampa Bay Buccaneers game is going to set the tone of the Bears season. If we would have lost that game, I'm sure we wouldn't be talking about the Super Bowl on here, right? We would be understanding this team, they're not going to compete with other teams, especially after that Colts loss. It really brought Bears fans, I think, back down to earth. Now, the thing that I'm really interested in is that the Bears, the one thing I have to give Bears credit for in this past game is that they put up 20 points on statistically one of the best defenses in the league. So, you need to do a little bit more than that, but they're getting there. They're getting there. So, really, as far as Nick Foles getting the Super Bowl, I got 2 questions, right? If he does win the Super Bowl for the Chicago Bears, does he go to the Hall of Fame, A? And B, do we draft a quarterback?
I think, okay, for the first question, I would say that the rationale is if you think Eli Manning is a Hall of Fame quarterback, then I think that Nick Foles is a Hall of Fame quarterback as well.
I agree.
Because I think the same reasons why you put Eli Manning in there is the same reasons why you put Nick Foles in there.
If you get two, here's the thing though. If you get two with two different teams in a matter of 3 years? 3 years?
That's impressive, yeah. That's very impressive.
I mean, that's insane. That is insane. Actually, I think it was 4 years. Is it 3 years, 4 years? I don't know. But that's insane, right?
Yeah. Either way, it's crazy. Or even just to do it on two different teams, honestly. I mean,
how many people have done that? I think, who was it? Kurt Warner?
He didn't win it for the Cardinals, though. He went to two
he
different Super Bowls, though.
He went to it. You're right. For two different teams. And there's very few quarterbacks who have done that.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And yeah, I mean, it would be crazy to think about that. So I think that's my answer to that question. And as to, do the Bears draft a quarterback? Man, I certainly hope so still. I think the Bears actually still would, but I feel like they would also possibly extend Nick Foles at the same time, which might actually counter the logic, if you know what I'm saying here.
Here's what I think. Nick Foles, if he wins a Super Bowl, if he plays 50% of the snaps this year, he has an option to opt out of his contract. So my guess, what happens if he wins a Super Bowl, he opts out, the Bears don't re-sign him, and instead they draft a quarterback. Because I think at that time they're thinking, hey, Akeem Hicks, he's getting kind of older. We have some pieces that we really like, but they're getting kind of older. Maybe it's time to do a little retool over the next couple of years and try to make a run at it again. Like smart teams do.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that would probably be the smartest choice. It kind of counters logic, not wanting to go out there and defend, the Super Bowl with the quarterback you just won it with. But at the same time, I think that honestly be the smartest move, because let me just tell you, they wouldn't go back to back with Nick Foles. I don't think they would. It's just kind of, not saying it'd be like a one-off or a fluke, but as far as like the direction that the NFL is moving in, it kind of would be a bit of a fluke. But at the same time, it'd still be validated. But I think moving on from Nick Foles would be smart. At the same time, I think there would be a certain amount of pressure, man, on that, especially from the Bears owners and management, possibly some of the older ones, to kind of keep them around. I mean, with that kind of success. But we'll see. I think it would definitely tear it'd be a media storm for sure, I think, if this is the situation we find ourselves in.
You look how mad Philly fans are right now that Nick Foles is the other Bears quarterback too. They are, dude. I never would have thought how mad these people are about the Eagles keeping Carson Wentz. They hate him. They hate him now. You see the one video of I think I might have sent it to you, the one dude that was packing his suitcase saying he's going to Chicago to get Nick Foles.
Oh yeah, I know. It's
hilarious, man.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be those. We shouldn't be those people. We shouldn't be those people.
Hey guys, like our video, subscribe, and check out our bi-weekly podcast on Apple Podcasts. Thanks.